One
If
extra
you
word.
want to grow as a person, actually, it's those things that you find the most scary. That's the place to start. It really is the place to start. And I think
Wow.
too many people, I think, put those off and I understand why. Right? It's difficult. It's awkward. Yeah, I'm a bit scared. I don't know what I'm doing. You kind of push it aside, but it never gets done. Those things, right? It's so easy to leave them.
Hello everyone, welcome to the Louis Dowdeswell podcast, where I'm sat with a fantastic trumpet player, Mr. John Thirkell. Thanks for being here.
No, thanks for inviting me.
Well, thank you for actually having me in your studio. I've come up from where I live, come to see John here. It made more sense. He's got this great room here that he gets to work out of, and it's full of these amazing discs. We've got the brand new heavies, Tina Turner, Swing Out Sister, Jamiroquai, you name it. John's played with them, and you may not have seen John in person or know what his face is like, but you've definitely heard him play trumpet and flugelhorn. So it's amazing to be in here in the spirit of these albums. So yeah,
It's good to have you.
Yeah. So we'll begin, I guess, by checking out John's history as a trumpet player, and I've got some very interesting questions for John. John is much more than just a trumpet player, and I'm excited to get into those weeds. So maybe you can give us a little insight into how you began, how you became, how you got to where you got in the industry, and give us a little rundown of.
Okay. Well, I started relatively late. I think about 14.
Yeah.
It started at school. Every week, every Thursday, this kid, a couple of rows in front of me, used to just get up and leave halfway through double mats. I thought, hang on a second, what's that about? This guy's name was Ken Brown. So I collared Brownie in the playground and I said, hey, what's all that about? Then, nobody, you just get up and go. Yeah. And he explained, you see, I'm in the school band and we rehearse at lunchtime. So I'm allowed to get out half an hour to go and help set up. So I thought, right, that works for me. Yeah. Where do I sign? So that was it. I started. They were looking for cornet players, and so I started in school. And of course, I'm from the northeast, so there's a brass band in every corner. So my village where I lived, Horden Colliery, it had a brass band. I started there, and then I joined a band called Easington Colliery. If you've seen the film Billy Elliot, that was filmed at Easington Colliery.
Wow!
And that's where I grew up. And in fact, I worked in that pit.
Wow!
Anyway, it took me about 10 minutes to work out I'm not doing this for the rest of my life, right? So I auditioned at some colleges. I auditioned at the Royal Northern, the Royal College, and the Royal Academy, and I didn't get in anywhere at all.
Wow.
Look, I was a bit foolish. I was utterly unprepared. I was going there playing the Hummel trumpet concerto. I'd never heard a recording of it. I literally bought the trumpet about 2 weeks before the audition.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just naivety, really.
Yeah.
But I didn't get in anyway.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, the guy who auditioned me at the Royal Northern was Maurice Murphy, great Maurice Murphy, right? So, and then about 10 years later, I was booked on a session.
Yeah.
For Harry Rabinovitz film session, and Maurice was the other trumpet player.
Wow! And
so it's the first time we'd worked together, and he said, we had at the break time. He said, it's really great to meet you, John. I've heard about you, and so blah blah blah. And I said, actually, we've met before. Okay, really well. And I said, you auditioned me at the Royal Northern. I said, oh no! I mean, this was haunting him all the time, right? He said, did you get in? And I said, no. He said, no, I remember now, you were shit. Yeah. That's Maurice's sort of sense of humour, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, he said, I'll buy you a pint to say sorry, which he did. So that's fair enough. All is forgiven. On
you might not have bumped into him after those 10 years had you got in.
Now, that's exactly right. Exactly.
I
much prefer the career path I took. Yeah. Alternatively, although it was a little bit interrupted, when the professor of trumpet, and I don't remember his name, it's probably for the best. He said to me, "No, you just haven't got what it takes." He literally said this to me in the audition. He said, if I were you, I'd go back up north and, stay in the brass band. It's like it's a job for life, right? Okay. Yeah. You get a job in the pit and you'll blah, blah. So that's what I did. The professor of trumpet at the Royal Academy tells you that, well, it must be true, right?
Yeah.
So I headed back up north and I got a job at Easington colliery. And like I say, it took me 10 minutes to work up not doing this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I met a guy. It's a guy I went to school with, and he'd gone to the Leeds College of Music.
Okay.
His name was Ian Cree, very nice trombone player. And so Ian had all tales, amazing, playing in this band and doing this and that band, and it all sounded amazing. So I thought, right, well, I'm going to, I'll go and get the qualifications I need to get in there. So I went to night school, got another couple of O levels and another A level, and so on. At school, I was the kid who was always mucking about. Not really taking anything very seriously. And so I got into Leeds College of Music, and that was a sort of that was kind of the conduit into the industry. There were loads of, like, Pete Beechall was there when I was there. Dave Plews, God rest his soul, was there. Rick Taylor, also God rest his soul. Snake Davis, a whole bunch of guys who probably left some really important ones out. And so when I arrived in London some years later, at least I knew those people. They would come down there.
That seems like quite a common route in that generation in particular, was to do the Leeds thing. Yeah, and then for you to take that leap to London, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I mean, I went via the QE2. I was introduced to a guy called Mike Potts, who was just in a pub in Leeds, and somebody introduced us, and we're chatting away. And I said, "What are you up to?" He said, "I'm in a band on the QE2." So that must be amazing. And bear in mind, I've been working down the pit a year previously, right? Oh, that must be amazing. He said, "Well, yeah, it was okay at first, but I've had enough now. I really want to get off. I said, I can't find anybody to take over from me,
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Yeah.
So he said, "Well, okay, well, when could you start?" I said, "Well, when do you want me to start?" He said, "How about Tuesday?" Fine.
Wow.
So I literally finished my pint. I went home and packed up a car and drove to Southampton.
Wow.
And got on the QE2. And I was there for about maybe 14 months or something like that.
That's quite
quite a long time. Yeah. That was a great education. Cabaret artists coming on all the time. It's a great kind of intro to what the industry was then, right? Lots of sight reading, lots of different styles of stuff. And then when I'd had enough on the QE2, when my drinking got to a level, I thought, I've got to get off enough. Yeah. I just headed to London, right, and looked up those people that I knew, Plusy and Pete Beechall and so on.
Was that around the same time you played with Buddy Rich, right?
That was a little bit later. I came up to London, I think, probably 1980.
Yep.
And then in 81 or 82 or something like that, I got the job with the Radio Big Band, the BBC Radio.
Oh.
I did, I took over from John Barclay when John left.
No way.
Yeah.
Just a year into being in London.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good
I was
job.
really lucky. I know. I was very, very lucky. And then it was after that. Once I'd left the BBC, that's when I joined Buddy's band in 84. I was doing Gil Evans. Actually, sorry, the name drop. I was doing Gil Evans at Ronnie's. And a couple of the guys, Tony Caruso, God rest his soul. They're all of my generation seem to be dropping, right? Tony Caruso, phenomenal player. He and another guy, I think it was Todd Schwartz, they came into Ronnie's to see Gil's band, and Buddy had just sacked the trumpet player.
No way.
I was sort of kind of chatted with them, and then the following day, Jay Craig rang me. Because I'd known Jay, Jay. Obviously, Jay had been a baritone
player. Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. And Jay, I'd known him from when he was in London before he went over to Berkeley, and so Jay called me up and said, "Did I fancy joining Buddy's band?" So what are you going to say? I had to clear it with Gil, but Gil was such a sweetheart. He said, "No, man, it's great. You go and do it." So
how long did you do that for?
I mean, I'd like to say a long time, but not. I mean, I managed about 3 months, I think, before it all got. And then Cy Gardner took over from me when I left. This is amazing. Cy, I watched the podcast you did with Cy, and he talks. Cy is a phenomenal player, and in that particular style, he couldn't be more perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And so his first gig with Buddy's band, but after I had left, was with Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
I mean, that's like, it couldn't be more perfect, right?
No,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Good times. Good
Yeah.
times.
Yeah, but that was it. I mean, that's an education in itself, right? Spending even just a few months in Buddy's band. I mean, that's
a band.
Yeah. And all of these things, they sort of prepare you for life as a freelance studio player, right? Because the pressure, you got to book this thick. And we never played the same set twice, right? So Buddy would shout, waltz, some kind of code, right? Not even the proper name of the song, right? He'd shout waltz, and the other guy, so everybody else would know what he was talking about. So they'd have to tell me, okay, that 5-7-6 or whatever,
right?
You're throwing trying to get there. Meanwhile, Buddy's going. Just waiting for everybody to get it. So
it reminds me of the Sid Lawrence Orchestra. It's the same thing. You just get the music, and then at the end of the tune, as soon as you'd finished the last note, you were putting it back in the pad because you knew that it would be a segue. You'd be ready. Oh, going to cut mute, and then it's straight.
Absolutely. But all these things, I think they are great training, aren't they? Because actually, the only way you can deal with that is to stay calm.
Oh yeah,
and that is a crucial element of being particularly.
I was told this. I used to play percussion and drums a lot more than trumpet actually. And when I was in the IAPS under 12s orchestra or something like this, playing percussion, Mike Osborne, Ozzy,
okay,
call him, was our tutor. And it's weird. I've played with him professionally since, but
right.
I always remember this guy's the sweetest guy, and he was a great inspiration at 11 years old or whatever, playing timps and in concert band. And he always said to me, he said, no matter, and obviously you're 11 or 12 years old, and you're looking at, for anyone who's never played percussion music, you get one sheet of music, but you might have to play 7 instruments. And he always say, like, no matter how fast the change from triangle to xylophone or from bass drum to timpani, you always walk.
Yes.
And that's obviously, that's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
But the panic sets in at 11 years old, like, I've got 2 bars to get over here.
Right.
And it's the same thing, you walk.
Yeah.
Because if you start running, you're throwing stuff around.
Absolutely. And look, I think particularly with the trumpet, right, staying calm is one of the fundamental prerequisites. I think, how many times, I mean, Louis, that probably doesn't bother you quite so much, but how many times you turn up at 10 o'clock in the morning at the studio, you open the book, and then the first note is like a top F or something like that, that's the time to keep calm, right?
Oh yeah,
that's not a time for panic.
Well, if you panic, you can't play it.
Absolutely, yeah, that's right.
So yeah,
I was very lucky to study with Carmine Caruso.
When I did that,
yeah, when I was on the QE2, I
you did a Zoom with him, right? You went on Skype.
Yeah. This is probably 15 years before the internet was even invented. Right? No, this would be I was 79 or something, 1979. Okay, it was amazing. I got in the QE2 not realizing I needed a flugelhorn, so I didn't have one.
Yeah.
So I went to Giardinelli,
okay,
which was on West 46 at the time. And I spent the day trying out flugelhorns, right? We dock in the morning and we don't sail until 5 o'clock in the evening. So I've got most of the day, and I'm find a flugelhorn. Find the one I want. That's the one I still use to this day. I'm chatting to the guy. The guy's making out the bill, and I said, I'm a big fan of Carmine Caruso. I love that book. I'd really like to try and get some lessons with him. Have you any idea how I might, find him? He pointed out the window. He said, "That's his office right across the road."
Wow. That's cool, isn't it?
It's amazing.
That's so cool.
So I went across there and sat. He was teaching somebody, and actually teaching Lou Soloff.
No way.
Yeah, I was outside waiting, and out came Lou Soloff. Not that Lou Soloff necessarily. I mean, I don't. Again, if Lou was such an absolute kind of gentle, modest sort of a guy. I can imagine him still going to see Caruso. And anyway, so I managed to set up. Caruso was fabulous, because it wasn't like I was there every Tuesday. I had this weird schedule whenever the QE2 was in town. Anyway, I kind of digressed somewhat there. Caruso, we often would talk we'd spend a whole lesson talking, wouldn't play a single note.
Yeah.
But Caruso had the knack of, without playing a single note, you would come out of there feeling like the greatest trumpet player in the world. He just had that sort of, he knew how to tap into that mental thing. And this whole idea of like, the minute you think you've missed it, you've missed it. You can split a note before you even put the trumpet on your face.
You're making me think a little now, because I've been taking a couple of lessons with a Bill Adam protege, I guess, called Bob Backer.
Okay.
Great guy. Amazing. Gentle. Beautiful soul.
American guy?
American, yeah.
Okay.
James Scopus put me in touch with him, and we had a couple of chats, and we haven't played trumpet yet,
right?
But we talked for 3 hours.
Sure.
And I didn't think we'd go here in this podcast, but this is cool that we're talking about this. What I get from Bob is that the way that Bill Adam taught was that the exercises, everyone gets obsessed with the exercises, but the magic comes from when you're in the room with the person. It's like the exercise grabs the attention or is used as some kind of tool to have almost like a therapy session or something like that with the student, right? You teach,
yes.
And the Bill Adam thing was you teach the student, not the trumpet.
Yeah, yeah.
And I believe that even Doc Reinhardt was the same, and it's interesting to hear that, Caruso, of all people, when you think about the method, it's the method.
Yes.
Right? It's the 6 notes, da 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 da.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're saying is really amazing, because even though the exercises that Bill Adam used are very different to the exercises that Carmine Caruso used, very, very different to the exercises that Doc Reinhardt uses, they're all getting to the same thing, which is, how do I get this guy or girl out of their head and get them out of their way so that they can grow again?
Yes.
Because when you get in a spin, you're done.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And this is the thing about the trumpet. And more often now, when I teach people, particularly one-on-one, they just come and I ask them, what would you like to get? What do you need? And quite often I'm presented with a spin. And they're not necessarily aware that they're in it.
Yeah.
And then you kind of help them see, and then hopefully they take it on. And I'm no master of this by any means, but we've got to practice. It sounds to me like the best teachers are really the ones.
I think so. Look, I have this, and I have this, and I talk about this at our music camps. I have this idea that if this is a kind of an ability line, okay, and this is beginner and this is expert here, then the closer you are to this end, your issues are physical. Right. The further along that line you travel, the less physical they become, the more mental they become, until you're right up here at the end. Not that I've gotten there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Those people, it's how you see, real amazing players. They're always incredibly modest, and because it's like the more you know, the more you realize there is to know. And I think
that's the same for everything.
Absolutely, for sure.
And one of the problems I'd say is that people never get deep enough into one thing to know how to get good at everything. Once you have the key, you can apply that to any skill.
Absolutely, 100%. I mean, I'm a big fan of planning. I've been a planner my whole life, and you can see my practice schedule for today is right there, and I plan it a month in advance.
Wow!
Just because that's just part of me. And I think I learned that from Caruso. And I think what you were saying about earlier, I think the method is just actually a vehicle. Right? It's a vehicle to achieve the same thing. It's really up here. Once you get to a certain level in anything, right, it all becomes a mental issue, right? And you can talk yourself out or in of anything, right?
Yeah, I mean, I learned this.
I watch you play those kind of high note things, right? And there is no sense of sort of struggle or battle. There may or may not be, but I think it feels like you put it up there and you play. You know what to do. You know how the mechanics work, and you just trust in that ability, right? And it's when you start to panic about it, that's when
it's like this idea where there's only two things: there's fear and belief.
Yeah.
And if you can come out of a lesson with more belief, then you will get better. But if you come out with more confusion and more fear, then you're
Indeed.
likely to just
Indeed.
spin even harder.
Yeah, and that was the magic of Caruso.
Wow.
Like I say, you could spend a whole hour lesson and not play a single note, and I would come out of there feeling like the greatest trumpet player in the world.
Wow.
Clearly wasn't, but you know, it was really, he would just discuss this whole thing, the idea of fear, the idea of
No way.
or the idea of sort of the way in which we hold ourselves back by doubt.
Self-limiting belief. Yeah.
Yes, and because once we start to panic, then all of the technique which we should be trusting in, it all goes out of the window, right? And then we're down to just.
And I guess that's concern for how you sound or how you come across or how people think you'll play. And
I'd be very interested to find out more about the chap, this Bob
Backer.
Yeah. I follow very closely the great stuff that Carl Seaver does on Facebook about the William Adam method, if you like. I know they're not really keen on calling it a method, many people, but I'd be fascinated to perhaps chat to that chat.
Yeah. Or maybe we can get a panel discussion together.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
That'd be really fun. Yeah,
that'd be great.
Cool. Well, maybe now's the time. Actually, one thing I want to talk to you about, of course, is all these discs. You're still touring now, like with Lisa Stansfield. We did a record together with Lisa a few years back. Really, really fun day. Loved it. Did you ever stop touring?
Louis, I stopped playing for about 8 years.
Okay, we'll get to that.
Okay.
So you definitely stopped touring.
Yeah.
What year did you stop touring? Roughly.
I've sort of always done it on and off, but there's touring and there's touring. In the olden days, you know, when I was playing with Level 42, for example, tours were like 3-4 months long.
Okay.
I mean, you don't hear of that anymore now.
Yeah.
Still, but as you say, Lisa, you know, we might tour for a month or something like that, and Swing Out Sister, my absolute favorite thing to do in the world.
Yeah.
You know, we did a month last year or the year before last, I can't remember. So I'm still doing a little bit of touring, but I sort of backed off of it probably the turn of the millennium, around about 2000. I was divorced at that stage. I had two children who I'd missed growing up. And I met my current wife, and we were planning on. And we had children. I didn't want that to happen again, right? You're away constantly the whole time. So I made a conscious decision to stop. So I was doing Jamiroquai at the time, and probably around about 2000, 2001 or something like that. I said, okay, well that's it. I'm going to come off the road and just stay at home.
Did you find that these discs, because obviously some of these might be live, but I presume that most of them are studio recordings?
No, they're pretty much all studio. Yeah, no, they're all studio albums. Yeah.
So were you currently touring with these people when you did these discs, or these recordings, or were these recordings done?
I think what happened.
Like, were you in the band, or were you there as kind of?
Yeah, there's in the band and there's in the band, right?
Yeah.
Level 42, not really in the band, but I did it all of the time, if you know what I mean, for about 8 or 9 years. But Mark and Mike were the band, and we were the sort of hired help, as it were, hired guns. A lot of the touring stuff that I've done, like for example Jamiroquai and Swing Out Sister and Level 42, came out of playing with these bands in the studio. So so
you play with them first in the studio, tend to be, and then you would be taken on tour.
Yeah, then they'd say, well, okay, we're going on tour. How do you fancy that?
Nice. So it's that way round. Okay, I see. Yeah, well, that's nice.
It's kind of almost exclusively that way, you know.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah. But you know, it was a different time then, Louis. I think as I mentioned earlier, I'm just finishing off the writing of a book, you know, Tales of Daring Do, setting fire to stuff, and you know what I mean, getting kidnapped by the Japanese mafia and all that sort of stuff, and in the sort of research for that, I have all my diaries right all the way back to 1978. I have every single diary.
Wow!
And I looked through some of those in the 80s, and we were doing like 8-10 sessions a week, every week, week in, week out, and a show in the evening, and so there was lots of work around it. It's sort of different now, right?
Yeah.
Then I think you could be a studio player, which is what I always wanted to be. For me, that is the sort of zenith of musicianship. I think every day, even multiple times in a day, you're faced with a completely different challenge, different type of music, different style. And that is what excites me, right? I'm not sure you can do that now. I don't. Maybe, I mean, I'm sort of out the other end of it.
There are a couple guys that maybe do almost exclusively studio work. You know?
Okay.
But at least the music's changed too, because obviously there were always classical trumpet players in the studios, but the work has become kind of crossover, but then also not crossover, and it's a bit, I think, maybe a bit more blurred. And also what is expected is, with the invention of samples and things like that, the way things are recorded is different too.
Okay.
But I imagine there are fewer, I don't know, I wasn't alive or dealing with it then, but I imagine that there are now fewer quote unquote freelance studio trumpet players.
Yes, I probably, and my work is almost, I'd probably say 80% in the pop music field. I somehow kind of got into that niche through a couple of guys. A guy called Gary Barnacle, sax player, who was very, very busy, and then he and I got on very well. He was like the funniest guy you've ever met. And so he was, he and I worked together quite a lot as the rather imperiously known as the Phantom Horns.
Yeah.
And then Richard Niles, who's still a dear friend of mine. I'm still working for Richard. In that period, in the 80s and through to the mid 90s, Richard was like the kingpin horn and string arranger, and I was his sort of number one guy. Call, yeah. So by dint largely of those two, most of my career was in the sort of pop music.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, field. So one of the questions I had for John, when I originally thought of speaking to John, was the fact that John, as I said at the beginning, isn't just a trumpet player. He's as everyone isn't just a trumpet player. All trumpet players aren't just trumpet players. But in this sense, John is a very, very successful businessman, and has created a couple of online products and things like that. Maybe even before many of the latest stuff came out, that you were kind of innovating, frontiering, if you will.
I started my first business which still exists actually, and is still paying me, in probably 1995 or something like that. Right. I would say there's a company called Two Camels. It got to a point, Louis, where I thought, hang on a second, I'm working every hour God sends, right? All day, every day, 7 days a week. And that's because there was lots of work, and not that I'm necessarily particularly special.
No, of course, it's
but anyway, and I thought, and I'm not really, I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
But I mean, how do I get?
There's a limit.
Where do I go from here?
There's a limit.
Right? There are only so many hours in the day, and so I gave this a great deal of thought, and then I kind of stumbled across the idea of passive income, right? Something which I know you're very familiar with, right? So at the time, I was working with a good friend of mine, a guy called Owen Kalis. We were songwriting. We built up a studio. It's quite unusual then. I mean, everyone has a studio these days, but then back in the mid 90s, it was quite an unusual thing. And we were sort of approached by a guy who said, "Look, you guys have got a studio. I've been let down by somebody who promised to record an album like of harmonica songs or something quite sort of obtuse like that.
Wow.
Could you? I mean, they've let me down at the last minute. Can you help me out?" And so okay. How hard can it be, right? So we recorded an album, 16. We got a harmonica player in, and we did the backing tracks and blah blah blah. And the guy paid us quite handsomely, and I thought, "Wow, this is I can cope with that. It was easy, right? We were both
trumpet's hard."
Exactly, yeah, absolutely. And so we did a couple more for this guy, and then I sort of thought, hang on a second. It got to a point where I thought, well, we're doing these, we're getting paid, and that's fine. I like that, but this other he's the guy making the money, right?
Yeah.
Because he would then license those tracks multiple times. So we get paid once, he's getting paid 15 times, 20 times, right? Because he would recompile them, and there's a whole industry then of this sort of, what would you call it? Kind of a subculture of budget, kind of sort of stuff. You would buy in a garden centre, or that sort. Those kinds of things, right? Yeah. And so, I made it my business to understand, to work out how the licensing business works. Anyway, before you know it, we own about 15,000 masters or something like that, and we're in the licensing business, and we've got 7,000 albums on iTunes or something like that.
Wow.
So just that really, but it was born out of, I felt like as a player, okay, where do I, from a financial perspective, right? Not necessarily driven by money, but I got a family to feed, right? Where do I go from here? I can't work anymore. So for me, I think I worked out that you're never going to get rich if you've actually got to be there, right? The way to make money is while you're asleep, somebody's buying your stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so that was the beginning of it, and we started then re-recording artists from the 70s. So we've re-recorded the Times, the Tramps, the Temptations, the Four Tops, the 3 Degrees, Sister Sledge, all of those bands from the 70s, some 80s bands, Kajagoogoo and stuff. We re-recorded. We got the original bands in and re-recorded.
So this is in your studio?
It's in our studio. We'd fly them over from America. We'd record them.
Wow.
And then own those masters with the artist. So the artist and I.
Nice.
So that's how it worked from their perspective. And because they'd long since stopped getting royalties from, Odyssey, for example, long Native New Yorker, great tune, amazing tune. Odyssey hadn't received royalties from the original for donkey's years, right? And all of a sudden we're sending them money every month.
So you mentioned it to me earlier when we were having a little chat in your house, that this was a bit of an accident, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean, yes, we sort of accident. If that guy Paul Savory hadn't asked us to do this harmonica,
you may not have thought of the creative idea.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess one of the something gives you, how do I put this? Something gives you the courage to make the leap away from that old life as a touring musician, and maybe it was a necessity too. You still have to do it.
Yeah, no,
you still have to actually, it's one thing seeing that guy who's got the licensing business. It's another thing going, well, I'll do that, and actually doing it.
Yes. I guess so.
People see that, and they weirdly the response might be something like, "Well, screw that guy. He's taken my money."
Yeah, that is a common.
But you had the insight to go, "Well, he's doing that. I could do that," and then you did it.
Yeah.
Like, where does that come from in you?
I mean, part of me suspects it might be stupid. I'm too stupid to be scared about it. You know what I mean? But
you don't think you do?
Yeah.
In a way.
Yeah. I mean, and to be fair, it was kind of a crossover, you know what I mean? So I had the safety net of still being a trumpet player, still working as a trumpet player, and I was able to do this because as a freelance player, you can
say yes or no.
You can say yes or no. That's right. And just what happened is gradually the pendulum starts to swing. So you're making less money as a trumpet player, and more money as a
business
entrepreneur, business or whatever it is. Yeah. And then I just got the taste of, you know what, Louis, and I think this is partly it partly harks back to being a studio player. When I started in business, I didn't have the faintest, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have the faintest idea. But I quite like that. You know what I mean? I like the buzz of like having to think on your feet.
Wow. It's so interesting that you'd say that, because I heard a quote recently that I'm trying to live by a little more, and it's similar to what you just said. This idea that if something looks uncomfortable to you, we're talking about it in the Sean Payne podcast too. If something seems uncomfortable to you, you should probably go and do that thing as fast as possible, because it's the place that there's the most growth opportunity.
Yeah.
For yourself.
Swallow the frog first, right? That's
right. So you can either see it, and it goes back to that fear and belief thing. You either see it and go, "Oh, that's not me," or you see it and go, "That's not me yet."
No,
It's
I
just
think
one
if
extra
you
word.
want to grow as a person, actually, it's those things that you find the most scary. That's the place to start. It really is the place to start. And I think
Wow.
too many people, I think, put those off and I understand why. Right? It's difficult. It's awkward. I'm a bit scared. I don't know what I'm doing. You kind of push it aside, but it never gets done. Those things, right? It's so easy to leave them. So I think, as I said earlier, I'm a planner. I mean, I've been a planner my whole life. And night before I go to bed, I look at my to-do list, which is huge. And I use a thing called Trello, and there are various sub lists. And I plan what I'm going to do the next day, depending on how much time I've got to do certain things. And I always put the thing I want to do the least is always the first thing I do.
Are you a morning person?
No.
So where do you get? Let's say you wake up, you've got no spirit. Like, does getting that job? Like, do you have enough motivation to know that if I get that job done, then the rest of the day will be good?
I think so. Yeah, and I think I'm not naturally a morning person. In the morning, I get up and I go walk the dogs. That's kind of
maybe that's a good.
Yeah, that's a bit of fresh air. First thing in the morning is always a good thing. I think. I know. I walk the dogs, come back, make a coffee, and then I get to it. And I always tackle. So you can drag in Trello. You can drag the order of things, and always at the top of the list is the one that I want to do the least. The thing I least enjoy doing. You get it out of the way, and then actually there's a huge sense of achievement once you've done that, right? Which I find spurs me on for the rest of the day. I think, well, I've got that horrible, awful job, whatever it might be, my VAT return or something like that.
Yeah.
Get it done, and then you
get it done.
Yeah.
I like that. There's another one I've been doing, which is actually the opposite approach, which has helped me a little, but I'm going to give this another shot. Because you've given me some food for thought there, where you deal with the low-hanging fruit first, almost to get you into the spirit. But I'm wondering whether your low-hanging fruit is actually just taking the dog for a walk, because that has to be done.
It has
to be done.
It does have to be done.
So you do that.
The dogs will not let you forget it has to be done too, right?
Right, and then the coffee.
Yeah.
Right, the little ritual thing.
Yeah.
And then they get to it. It's like, okay, now I'm prepped.
Yeah.
Let's
and also, Louis, I think one of the things, like I use this software Modacity for my practice thing. And one of the things I like about that sense of organization, so it's the same with Trello and my to-do list. I open that and it says here on there, August Wednesday, right? So I do that every Wednesday for August, that particular routine. And I don't need to think about it then, right? I just do it. And in that kind of preparedness, it takes away any ability to procrastinate or to put things off. Right, it's got to be done. So let's start. Right, start at the top and work your way down. And that's what every day. So every month, in Modacity, I put 7 practice schedules today: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I do those every week for the week of August. And towards the end of August, I will start to change it up, ready for September. And I find that just works for my temperament because I don't need to think about it. I just do it. And the same with Trello. I'll get in the office in the morning. The night before, I put the list there. I just do it. And there is no room for procrastination. I'm not thinking about should I do this? It's done. It's decided. Just do it.
Just do it. Do you find the trumpets are a distraction from your work that you have to do?
Yeah, I'm going to come across as a madman, but I have a little app on my computer.
This is really, I find this helpful because I personally find that I have to go to the cafe to do my admin. Because if I go into my studio, and this is a weakness, right? I'm not saying this is good.
Yeah.
I go into my studio, my trumpets are there, and let's say I'm rendering a video. There's like 30 seconds there that I have to wait. And I'm too impatient. I'll go and get my trumpet and I'll play a bit.
Yeah.
And then my head's out of the task.
Right.
And then I'll play for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And then I've completely made a broken the focus.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
And it's like a distraction because it's the easy thing to do, but I know I need to do it. And I want to do it.
Yeah.
But then do I really want to do it, or do I just not want to sit here and wait for this 30 seconds? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Again, I've removed any sense of personal investment in that. So I have an app which you can set the parameters of, and I have it set so that every hour it shuts everything. It just grays everything out for 10 minutes. So it doesn't matter what I'm doing. Every hour, and you can set your own parameters, but I have it set for every hour. Everything goes grey for 10 minutes, and so I pick up the trumpet, and I'll do often. I mean, more than 10 minutes, right? But that's my. It also means every hour I'm standing up, right? When you get to my age, it's important to keep moving, right? If you're sitting on your ass all day, I'm stiff as a board by the end of the day. So every hour I get up and I pick up the trumpet and I do at least 10 minutes, often more, put it back down. And then after 10 minutes, the computer comes back on and then I crack on with what I was doing. Now,
so this is a break for you.
You could see it as a break. I just see it as organizing my day, really. So I practice my day. I do my day, and every one of those little titles that are in there, I cover everything: flexibility, tonguing, and so on and so forth. Every one of those gets 10 minutes every day.
But because you set the time aside and organized it in such a way, there's no guilt attached to it. It's not a distraction from what you're doing. You're actually obliged.
I don't even think about it. There is no thought at all. The computer goes off. I get up. I pick up the trumpet, and I move on to the next item on my modacity list. And that may not work for everybody. For me, it just works. I like to be told what to do. Yeah, it's a boundary. That's right. And it just works for me, and that's how I.
Is this something you've always been like, or did you find that you needed to be more?
I've always been a goals-orientated person, even from the age of about 20. From my 20s, I've always set like 5-year goals.
Okay.
And I've always tried to stick by them. And I think for me, when at our horn camps, when a student comes, and the first thing I say to them is, okay, what is the goal? What is the dream?
Yeah.
What's the dream?
Define your aim.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because once you know that, then you work backwards from that, and you're not going to waste time working on things that don't get you closer to that.
Yeah.
So then that's your long-term ultimate goal. So then, okay, what's the mid-term goals and the short-term goals and the very short-term data?
Yeah.
Here, I see this every day. For the captain who knows not for which port he steers, no wind is favourable. Right?
You don't know where you're going.
You're drifting, right? And I don't have time for drifting, right? Getting old. And I've got stuff I need to do. I've got stuff still got things I want to achieve. I don't have time for just drifting. I like to sort of make a 5-year plan and try and achieve that, and then on. And then I can subdivide that. I mean, I have friends who think I'm sort of on the spectrum somewhere. I don't. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm not.
The fruit's evident though. Like when I look around and I see all this, this doesn't come from nothing. So hats off to you for finding a system that works and that you can trust. I feel like I'm kind of in that personally in that process at the moment. Is to try and not be distracted by, another thing I personally have an issue with is that I tend to treat a lot of the problems I have as logistical rather than emotional. They're almost always emotional.
Okay.
For example, this idea of being distracted by the trumpet, which makes no sense, but to me, it's an emotional issue because I'm not disciplined enough to do the system that you have. You've almost taken the emotion. You've created an environment where the emotion can't get in the way.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's an interesting word, discipline, right? It's because I don't think I'm disciplined at all.
Okay.
But because there is this system there, and I'm just a bit stupid, really. And that's, it's like monkey see, monkey do. And I just do it. So I think actually, I don't think I'm disciplined at all. But
you create a system that you have to stick to the boundaries.
I don't even think about it. It doesn't really. I don't think about it. I just do it, and that's kind of worked for me, And look, Louis, I have to say, whatever system you use, it's working, my friend. so I wouldn't beat yourself up too much.
No, I just think that having these conversations, from
it's really it's fascinating. I
want people as well to hear how you've done things, because I think it's important. There are people that get themselves in a spin, and it sounds like you have systems that you use to almost negate that possibility.
But I think from a from a different perspective in terms of music, right? I mean, your playing ability is one thing, okay, right? And I think there's a generation of trumpet players now, guys like yourself and like Ryan and Tom, and there are loads of these guys. I mean, I can't even begin to get close to that that level of ability. No, look. Let's call it as it is, and that's fine. That's how life is, right? Every generation pushes the boundaries more and more and more, and you're several generations behind me, so that's fine. I absolutely love that, and the way the world works is old codgers like me. We should get out the way and make way for the young. That's how everything in the world advances, right? But I think that we do, in both in business and in music, I think we put too much, I think, and I'm being careful of how I say this, but we put a lot of emphasis on ability, whereas actually sometimes you only need to be good enough, right? There's much more to it. From a business perspective, but also from a playing perspective, right? I think
character perspective.
I think all of these records come not because I was ever the greatest trumpet player in the world, but I ran my playing like a business. Okay, so I care about if I do a session, I realise I'm there to provide a service. Okay, and it doesn't matter what kind of music. It never mattered to me what kind of music it was. Right? I just love to do a good job, and for me, it's about finding out what the guy wants, the artist, the producer. Find out what they want, and then work out how you give that to them. And so, I think it's the same in business, right? If your customer is happy, then they're going to keep coming back. And they're going to keep coming back, and then your business will take care of itself. So if we have to be driven by the right motivation, I think. And from a playing perspective, as I say, I was never I'm okay, I can play, but a long way to go still. But I think whatever success I've had is because I think I treated it like a business, and that would be my advice to young musicians coming into the industry.
I think I love that. I think that makes complete sense. I think the hang up that people get to is this idea that we're not all unique, but we're all unique. So if your whole identity is wrapped up in how good you are as a trumpet player, I mean, what does that even mean? Like, what that can mean a million things,
That's
right?
Damned by faint praise, right?
It's impossible to figure out what that means on a scale, So not only are we all unique trumpet players, but we're also all unique humans with different gifts and experiences to offer. And one of the beautiful things is that, let's assume what you said earlier about, your position in how good you are as a player is true, which I don't necessarily believe, but let's say it's true. There's something that you have which none of the other trumpet players have, which is all of these experiences which you can now offer and serve other people with. So it's not even relevant. I've learned this recently, and it's just the most freeing thing, because no longer are you having conversations about whether or not someone is the right player to do X job based on just their trumpet playing or their musicianship. Sure. It's also about whether or not they're the right person who's going to gel with that, the temperament and these other things. It's so much bigger. Or for example, if you need to have a leader, not everyone's a good leader. No. They could be a great player. Or if you need to have a good teacher, not everyone's a good teacher. They can be a good player. If you need to have, there are requirements for certain situations where it's not only about the playing. That sounds like that could come across as sounding a little bit, a bit of a cop-out answer. But the older I get, the wiser I get, the more I realize it's true, and it's actually the only way that this can move forward. I must applaud you for your position on young players, because you've positioned yourself in such a way that you're not reliant on work that is taking away the opportunity for experience that you once had for younger players in order to make space for them so that they can flourish despite the state of the industry. And I never mentioned this with Simon, but I've done a previous podcast with Simon Gardner. I remember sitting in the car with Simon once, and he said to me, it's just a great quote that I'll take with me to my grave. He said, he said, well, if you look after the young guys, one day the young guys will look after you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's so simple.
Sure. Of course.
And looking after them could mean just getting out of their way.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that means having your own eggs in a row, is that the row, chickens in a row, whatever it is, in order to facilitate that, so that, and that requires a little bit of maturity, and to also see that there's something ahead that isn't just doing the same thing you did when you were 20.
Yeah, I think, and look, I think Simon's probably in the same position insofar as I'm quite choosy about what I do things that I like doing, and I don't do things I don't like doing. Now
it's called freedom.
Yeah, well, yeah, but I think there's a school of older players who are clinging on for dear life. Maybe I'm being unfair there. I don't know, but certainly it's important to me to not be doing that. I think that's how the world moves forward in not only playing the trumpet, but in every aspect of life. The old guys have got to move. It's in nature. You have a pride of lions. There comes a point where the young lions. They've got to, they need to make their way. The old guys they've got to get out of the way.
Yeah.
And I think it's really crucial for the kind of organic growth of what it is. And this is why, like I say, there's a generation of you guys who I couldn't begin to come close to that sort of technique. I do what I do, and I enjoy doing it. But it's moved on a lot, and that's how it's exactly how it should be.
Well, I've always really enjoyed playing with you, but
it's likewise.
Great. It sounds great. Okay, this is good. Oh, this has been brilliant. Would you say? I mean, I asked you in your house. I said I've got this other transition that I want to explore. This idea that after having been in business, you said you didn't play for 8 years. When you came back, I guess you would be considered a comeback player, which is a weird idea when I think about these. But you're a comeback player. You've taken the horn on. I guess why did you pick the horn back up? And what did business teach you about playing and about being a businessman in the music industry again?
Yeah, it's funny. I think we had this conversation earlier. Right? I think for me, I always treated my playing career like a business.
Yes,
right. And so, actually, I took that into business.
Yeah, that seems like not a normal.
I guess it probably isn't, but
I could be wrong. Maybe
it just seemed instinctive to me that I'm there to provide a service as a trumpet player, and it's not really about what I think or what I want or how I think it sounds. It's how the guy who's paying my wages. It's what he wants, right?
Yeah.
And they're going to keep on coming back if you keep on giving them what you want. So I kind of took that into music. I stopped playing altogether. It's quite an interesting idea. Of course, I had started a digital online business, a company called Pure Seller, which sold in the end. And it sort of accidentally took off. And there just was no time. We had an office in New York and we had like 30 employees or something like that, and an office up in Baker Street, and it was all very grown up. And there's only so many times you can say no to a fixer or a producer who rings up, and they're gonna move down the list. And so it's a combination of largely saying no too many times, so people move on. And so I woke up one day realizing I hadn't done a session for ages, or a gig or whatever. And that was fine. I actually, it was a period in my life but I'm okay with, I didn't play. I felt like a grown-up,
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? It feels, ever so important, right? Meetings and all this kind of stuff, right? And a title and business cards and all that kind of stuff. And I enjoyed it. As I said, like I said earlier, I was way out of my depth. And I loved that. I loved this idea. Having meetings with publishers, I'd go. I was, part of my responsibility was getting the publishing rights for this particular piece of software, and I was going to Los Angeles and New York and talking to them, and I've got a faintest idea what I'm doing, not the foggiest idea, but somehow I quite like that skating on thin ice. So I used to get off on it. I like it. Anyway, so that kind of happened, and then after a while. You know what's really funny is throughout all that period, if somebody said to me, "What do you do?" I would have always said, "I'm a trumpet player." Weird.
I love that.
It is weird. Where's the logic in that? I hadn't played for years, but if you asked me what I was, I'd say I'm a trumpet player. Just happened to be doing something different. Anyway, after a while, I kind of started to miss it a little bit, and I picked it up and I started to play, and actually thought, we were getting towards the end of that business. It was time to move that on. But what is interesting, because people often said to me, "Louis, after 8 years off, how long does it take you to get your chops back together?" Well, I mean, it didn't take me long at all to get my chops back together. What took a long time was getting my confidence. Right? I never expected that at all. But when I was young, prior to, in the sort of pre-break period, you just do it. You just turn up to work and they stick the music in front of you and you just play it. You don't think about it. But after 8 years off, when I came back, it took me a long time to build up, and I still don't think necessarily I've got the same level of that kind of, that thing you need as a trumpet player. Not arrogance, but just inner self-belief. That's right, self-belief, right? And I still don't think I've got that 100% back. That was the hard thing for me, was getting that self-belief back. But hey, I mean, luckily, I've got it back enough to do the things that I need to do. But that shocked me. That I wasn't expecting that at all. I was expecting to spend ages getting my months and months and months getting my chops back together. But actually, my chops came back pretty quickly, and I started working again pretty quickly. I did some deps in the odd show here and there. Stuart Brooks, God rest his soul, I used to go in for him. Yeah. And actually, I was pretty nervous, just playing like second trumpet on Dreamgirls or something like that. I was nervous is not the right word, but top A, bah, like this. You know what the shows are like, right? It's all a bit pearly and all a little bit on the stick kind of a thing. And I was finding myself, whereas I wouldn't have thought twice about it previously. I found that quite an interesting thing.
Oh. Yeah.
Well, there we go.
No, it's amazing. Oh, cool. Well, I think there's something else that you have in your life at the moment. In this, I don't know whether we call it horn camp anymore, because it's more than that now.
Yeah, the music camp. The company's called Elite Music Camps. And the idea being that again, it's leverage. Like any kind of business, what you're doing, Louis, is you have a reputation which you're leveraging quite rightly. You've worked very, very hard to get that, and you leverage it with your music school and all of the other things that you do. And I mean, I'm super impressed with the things that you come up with, the kind of play along things and all this sort of stuff. I mean, it's really impressive. I think it's amazing. And effectively what you're doing is you're leveraging your reputation, right? And so for me, the idea of Elite Music Camps was to leverage my address book. So I'm fortunate.
Leveraging your network, yeah.
Indeed, yeah. And so I'm very, very fortunate to own a big old farmhouse in the Sierra Nevada mountains, just outside of Grenada. And it occurred to me, I started doing horn camps with my friend Snake Davis, just as a kind of a thing, really, a bit of a hobby. My wife's idea, actually. And then I thought, they went pretty well. So I was kind of, again, just leveraging my address book. Because of my involvement with Jamiroquai, I got Paul Turner, the bass player, to do a bass camp, and we do a guitar camp with Rob, the guitarist from Jamiroquai, and I've just launched this year a cornet camp with Tom Hutchinson from the Corey band. And effectively, I take 6, 7, sometimes 8 people. We all go and live in my house out there, and we have a big music room there, and we just play. We teach. I teach the trumpet, and Snake teaches the sax, and Rob the guitar and so on and so forth. But actually, it's much more than that. The strap line is learn more than just the notes. And,
Love it.
And so everybody has breakfast, lunch, dinner together. We hang out in the evening drinking, and you have a whole week to just talk about the kind of things we're talking about now.
Yeah.
And it's really, really very, very special. I mean, I just absolutely love doing it. We're spreading a bit of joy.
Yeah.
You see people who come, Jamiroquai fans who play the guitar. I see that they can't believe it. I see them pinching themselves. Spending a week here with one of my guitar heroes. Just
Wow.
and you see they're just regular guys.
Yeah.
It's really
well done for facilitating that magic for people, because it takes.
love to do a
someone
Louis Dowdeswell camp, right?
Well, we'll talk about
Watch
it.
this face.
There we go. It could be fun. I tried to go to Spain. It'll be good. But yeah, well, John, look, we could probably talk forever, and there is much more meat left on this bone. And I say this with many of the guests, and I do hope that we could have another chat sometime. But I found this conversation to be very inspiring, particularly the bit in the middle about productivity. And you're clearly a doer, and I think we need more doers and less thinkers right now. Just get on with it, get it done. Stop coming up with the perfect idea and not executing it. Execution's key. And I'm starting to learn that the hard way, and I'm really grateful for the little things that you've offered, and maybe there's something in there for some of the audience members too. But it's been absolutely lovely talking to you.
Absolutely, Louis. It's great to talk to a thinking person. I mean, I don't mean that. I don't mean to be.
Yeah.
But you're clearly a thinking person, and these kind of conversations I find incredibly stimulating. So, thank you, man.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Great.
Lovely.